Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
I was just saying, I didn't see anybody with ashes on yesterday. That's unusual. I mean, for me, I invariably come upon somebody. I'm trying to think, where the heck was I? Well, I was a bit out and about. Didn't see any ashes. The reason I'm thinking about it... Hello, by the way. You were expecting Tom Sokolowski. The reason being that I told you Tom would be here today. And yesterday afternoon, I got an email. And he's had a little setback. And so he's unable to be here. And just send your thoughts his way. Good thoughts, and prayers if you're a prayerful type. He's really had a lot of stuff to deal with. So it's juste moi and toi. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Moi and toi. But is toi a... toi just means one person, doesn't it?
Oh, vous.
Vous? Nous?
Vous is you
Who?
plural.
Vous?
Yeah.
Nous?
Nous
Vous?
is we.
We?
Right?
Yeah, I know, they're all, that's right. I just don't know. Anyway, Jess and I don't know. Here we are together. That was my point. And the reason I was thinking of Ash Wednesday, not having known it was, is because of, I'm looking at a picture of an attractive young woman with ashes on her forehead. She is said to be in Manhattan, and she's taking a selfie with her ashes. And there's a big story in the Wall Street Journal about, it's a whole new word, ashtags. Instead of hashtags, anyone who does, Twitter,
Right.
you add these hashtag, this is called an hashtag, and in fact, it is, it's a happening thing among Catholics to get your ashes and then put a selfie up. The Vatican is even into it. I'm not kidding. It says here, show us your ash. Oh, yeah, the typically stated United States Conference of Catholic Bishops welcomed photo submissions to its Facebook page yesterday. So maybe I went too far by saying the Vatican. But what they're saying is that the new pope, that'd be Francis, I call him Frank, Francis, who has himself posed for us with this, doing a selfie with some kids. Michael Murphy, who is a director of Catholic Studies at Loyola in Chicago, said the Pope's effect has made being Catholic hip again. Again? I mean, no offense, but the words Catholic and hip, I just don't. What do you mean, hip again? Catholicism was, in my lifetime, never particularly hip. But so I would have a little problem with the word again there. But there's no doubt the Pope has created a much, hipper image of Catholicism, and this professor at Loyola says, you take that and you merge it with the technology out there, and you have a whole new thing and a whole new powerful thing that gets young people smart. So all these ash tags for Lent are just an indication of how social media and a hipper new pope can revitalize in some ways and reach out to young people who have been turning away from the church, largely because of its stance on sexual issues. I don't think anything else is turning the kids off. It's the churches being hung up on these sexual issues. Abortion, contraception, homosexuality. I mean, it's just, that's it. And if the church could get its act together on that and, in fact, become hip, I think the church could definitely see a resurgence of even young, hip, technologically inclined young people. On the next page is a squib about like this, about the fact that an arrest was made in the killings of the two sisters here in East Liberty. That got into the Wall Street Journal is interesting to me. And I ask you why. There's just so much space in a newspaper. And there's a lot going on. And they have one little section for news briefs from the U.S. And it's just this big. I think there's just three of all the things going on. The fact that there was an arrest in this case is interesting, that would make the Wall Street Journal. And the reason it did is apparent from the headline. And I have noted that the Wall Street Journal has sort of been on this story. They noted the murder. I think there was an interim little note. And none of these are big stories, but this has been a story that the Wall Street Journal has covered. And it is because the sister of these two women who were killed, these two sisters here, it was a big family. The sister is a state legislator in Iowa. And so the headline reads something like, legislators, killer of, what does it say? Man accused of killing sisters of Iowa lawmaker. So of all the murders going on in this country, and God knows there's lots of murders going on, the Wall Street Journal glommed onto that one because the two murdered women were sisters of a legislator in Iowa. And I don't know what that says. That says that to the Wall Street Journal editors, anything having to do with an elected person at whatever level and wherever rises up in importance. So if these were just two women who didn't happen to have a sibling who held elected office in a state legislature, the Wall Street Journal would not have covered it. I think it's odd. I really do. And the reporter in me, I mean the person with the degree in journalism in me, says, I don't understand that. I really don't. I don't understand how that becomes a national story. Do not. So that's just my That's all I'm getting from the Wall Street Journal today for you. That brings us, excuse me. Yesterday we had Tammy Ryan on, playwright, professor, Point Part, talking about sexual assault in the military. We're specifically talking about the bill proffered by Senator Gillibrand of New York State. And that bill has a solid majority of senators on board, but it doesn't have 60. If it has 56, 57, fine and dandy. But as you know, Senate rules, even though they have been brought back into a measure of sanity regarding the filibuster, a bill like this, So because there's not a super majority of 60 votes, I was saying yesterday I would think it's unlikely that this thing passes, despite the fact that a majority, and bipartisan majority, of senators do support it. It's controversial because the Department of Defense is totally opposed to it because it removes commanders of their authority to prosecute rapes, and instead pulls them out because of the obvious, what you end up with, conflict of interest going on there. And in fact, there's a court-martial going on right now of a commander who himself has been charged with rape. So, I mean, in that instance, what? He's supposed to, handle the case himself, decide whether or not he did it? I don't know. So, turns out, I told you yesterday, write your senator. Tell Casey you want him to go after this tougher measure, and tell Toomey, because he's not on board. And it might be a little late unless you sent an email or a text, because that bill, I was surprised to see, it's coming up for a vote this afternoon. So it's either going to surprisingly make its way through, or it's going to go down for lack of a supermajority. Now there is, as we mentioned, another bill sponsored by Claire McCaskill of Missouri that also has a lot of important changes to how the military deals with this epidemic of sexual assaults. And I suspect then that it'll end up passing. But if Gillibrand's passes, that'll be astonishing. So I'll keep my eye out for that this afternoon. Although I think other people will too, so I could probably rest a little easier in that regard. All right. I'm just going to keep talking. If anybody has anything to throw in here, feel free. Jess. Jess. You think people heard that?
I don't know.
Jess has such a congestion that, you know how bad it is when you're so congested that even when you sniff, desperately trying to get nothing moves. You can't. It's just, really, you need a Roto-Rooter. That's what I
Don't they clean your carpets?
They don't clean your carpets. Roto-Rooter?
Yeah.
They're plumbing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right, plumbing.
Okay, that makes sense.
And they're used to dealing with sort of noxious substances, which is, I suspect, what we're dealing with you. Blah, 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 blah. So this really, initially, when I saw this story, I said, what? There was a guy in Boston, this goes back 3-4 years, who used his cell phone to not take selfies, but to take pictures up the skirts of women who were riding the subway with him in Boston. In fact, there's a word for that. You know there's a word for that? Taking pictures up women's skirts. It's called upskirting. It is a word, upskirting. And so a case was brought against this guy under, peeping Tom laws and voyeur laws and all the kinds of laws, and I would imagine in terms of just privacy and a woman's right to be secure in a public place. And this case made its way all the way up to the Massachusetts Supreme Court, where yesterday the court said that what that guy was doing is not against state law.
Shut up.
No!
Oh my God.
Just says, shut up. No, it's not against state law. And I mean, and he walked. And the court said the reason is the state law says that, if a woman is nude or partially nude and you're surreptitiously taking pictures of her, that is a violation. But these women were not nude. And they were not partially nude, but good God in heaven. That means you can stick a stranger can put a camera under their skirt and take a picture? So I really freaked about this. And then I saw, again, when you read a little bit more, the court didn't want to let this guy go. They said what the state is arguing is that a woman riding on a public trolley has a reasonable expectation of privacy in not having a stranger secretly take photographs of her privates. I mean, up her skirt, okay? And the court, this is the court's words, that the prosecution, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, was maintaining that a woman should have a reasonable... Who's going to argue? I ain't arguing. And the court goes on to say that proposition is eminently reasonable. They agree. But, and here was the problem, the law, as it was written in Massachusetts, simply does not address this crime, because such an idea, such a ability, I guess, really didn't exist when the law on peeping toms and voyeurism was written. So the Supreme Court lets the guy go because he says there's nothing in the law, because the only thing in the law that there can be is these women have to be in a state of semi-nudity, and they're all dressed. The court said a female passenger on a trolley who was wearing a skirt, a dress, or the like, covering these parts of her body, is not a person who is partially nude, no matter what is or is not underneath the skirt by way of underwear.
So ridiculous.
Jess, you shouldn't go to law school. Let's just put it there. Don't go to law school, because Jess is from the Common Horse Sense School of Law. Not the, parsing of various words and what exactly is in the statute and what is not. And no, but because this is the way the law works, the guy walked, and the Speaker of the House, of the Massachusetts House, said this: the ruling of the Supreme Court is contrary to the spirit of the current law, that's for sure. And the House will begin work on updating our statutes to conform with today's technology immediately. So I can assure you that bill will sail right straight through, and from now on, women in Massachusetts can be assured that if a stranger sticks a phone under their skirts in a public place and takes a picture, he will, in fact, be committing a crime. But he ain't now. You know, in a lot of ways, technology is, and I think this subject comes up a lot in various ways, technology is outpacing by a long shot, outpacing our laws, our legal system, our political realities, our social reality, everything. Technology is way out, and we spend and will continue to spend, and this is what living in this technological age is about. All of the institutions by which human beings organize themselves, and which then provide a measure of stability for our lives, all of those institutions are going to forevermore be playing catch-up with technology. And it's never. It's a race it can't win. It's a race that technology will clearly win, without a doubt. Margaret writes, you know, there should be a law against just plain creepy. I totally agree, Margaret, but then there'd be that sticky issue of defining creepy. Is what's creepy to you creepy to me? It would be one of those things. Who's the justice that famously said that he couldn't define obscenity, or pornography, but he knew it when he saw it? That's sort of it, and that's not a good legal standard. Obviously, a little subjective, but I agree there should be a law against just plain old creepy. Technology allows a lot of creepiness. A lot. The creeps of this world have never been in a happier state. There are so many tools that they have now that they never, ever, ever in human history had before. The creeps, the criminals. It's a great time for them. All righty, I have hit my... Yes, mark, and gone over just the teeniest bit. So we are going to take a quick break, and we shall be right back.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this. Public Theater's masterpiece season unleashes a true classic with An Iliad. Homer's tales of the Trojan War take center stage in this dynamic tour de force, featuring one actor playing all of the Greek epic's most famous characters. Tegel Bougere stars in this emotionally charged theater event that the San Francisco Chronicle hailed as absolutely riveting. An Iliad is on stage at the O'Reilly from March 6th through April 6th. For tickets, call 412-316-1600 or buy online at ppt.org.
BergBargains.com is the best bet for great deals in the Berg. Log on today for exclusive bargains from your favorite local restaurants like Blue Line Grill, Atria's, and Verde. Plus discounts on gift cards from H&M, Nordstrom's, and the Cheesecake Factory. BergBargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. BergBargains.com.
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck for Dave 2037 so he can buy anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman. What are you getting Steve 2037?
Steve 2037 will be just fine.
Well, okay, but don't expect to borrow my anti-gravity boots.
Save something for the future. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1,000,000. For free ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Public Theater's masterpiece season unleashes a true classic with and Iliad. Homer's tales of the Trojan War take center stage in this dynamic tour de force featuring one actor playing all of the Greek epic's most famous characters. Tegel Bougere stars in this emotionally charged theater event that the San Francisco Chronicle hailed as absolutely riveting. And Iliad is on stage at the O'Reilly from March 6th through April 6th. For tickets, call 412-316-1600 or buy online at ppt.org.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Yeah, here I am. Yet again. So, I came upon this little piece. I'm a little leery of subjecting you to it, but it's something that we need to, I think, keep in mind. And because there is so much that we, the people, if we take our citizenship responsibilities at all seriously, there are so many large issues which our government is failing miserably at. And all of these issues require the citizenry to stand up and say, enough. Let me just... American exceptionalism. If I say I'm one more time, shoot me. Do I do that a lot? I'm hearing it.
I don't think so.
Do you think of me as an ummer? No?
You're not up-talking anymore.
I'm not up-talking anymore.
I think you have been.
But I was. And now I'm not. So I'm not up-talking, but I'm umming. Oh, well, I'll try not to. We all have such verbal tics that we're not aware of. And if you listen to yourself, which I do not. If you listen, I don't mean to make you self-conscious over there, Jess. She's not. No, not at all. Oh, dang. Speaking of your nose, somebody told me the other day of a name, the moniker of a woman here who does roller derby. And what was it? It was Snot was the first. Snot, but it was a takeoff on It's Not. Snot, and then her last name, so Snot, blah. And there was something so funny about all of a sudden, I'm sorry, Jess, I look at you and I think snot. And then I thought, snot. That came up just yesterday with the roller derby. Never mind. Okay. So, exceptionalism. Yeah, the United States is exceptional, I think, in many ways. I do, definitely. No country ever before like us or really since. We're very, in our way, unique. And in some of our exceptionalism, we have reason to be proud. And then there's some other aspects of our exceptionalism that we shouldn't, and at all. And in fact, are calls to action by any good citizen. And I'm going to give you 6 areas. In order to judge our exceptionalism, we could argue that in all the cases I'm about to share with you, the United States is exceptional. But it's not an exceptional that we should embrace. Let's talk about something we've talked about many times, American criminal justice. It is, I think, generally known that the United States imprisons more of its citizens than just about any other country in the world. This is not a sign of a country that's got its act together. When a country has to literally incarcerate huge numbers of its citizenry, something's awry. So here are the numbers, and these numbers can obviously be crunched because many folks have done so, and international organizations have done so. Out of every 100,000 Americans, we as a country imprison 716. That number in and of itself doesn't maybe mean much because you think, yeah, so, okay, 100,000 people, and of those 100,000 Americans, 716 of them we put in jail. Well, so let's compare to another country just so we can see how we're doing in that regard. The next one down in terms of, we're way up there with that number. So let's look at the next one. It's Russia. And Russia, per 100,000 of its citizens, puts 484 of its citizens in jail. Remember, we're 716. Russia, under us, is 484. That's a huge drop. After Russia, we come to China. Yeah. And China, we think of these countries as repressive and with, horrible penal systems that, that are used to torture people and deprive them of their liberty. China, per 100,000, 121. Remember us? 716. 716. The fact is, folks, there is no other country in the whole effing world that imprisons its citizens at such a huge, huge rate. There is not another, except I am going to come up with one country that keeps us from being number one. And there's sort of an estimate because we're not sure exactly what goes on in that lovely country that spares us from being number one. And that, of course, is North Korea. North Korea. So, I think that means this country has some work to do. And I think vaguely you're starting to see some signs that this nation is waking up. You even have Republicans who are always the ones say, lock them up and throw away the key. Republicans realizing that... What? Oh, no, Republicans realizing that it's hard to be a fiscal conservative and be a lock them up and throw away the key and 3 strikes you're out and incarcerate people forever and ever. So at least we're starting to see some pull back. And we want to thank Attorney General Holder for starting to put these issues out front, by the way. Also, before we leave the wondrous American criminal justice system, let us, now, second only to North Korea, incarcerate more of our citizens than any other nation in the world. We are also the only what's considered developed country that still has a death penalty. I'm surprised there's not at least one other. I guess not. And here's the thing. So we're still killing. We put them in jail. We kill them. And the racial disparity that is apparent in both incarceration and who we put to death is, if it ain't a red flag, I don't know what would be. Of all the people we do execute, 42% are black. All right, so American exceptionalism. But for the North Koreans, we'd be number one. But we're number two. Okay, let's look at another. This piece I'm looking at also goes in. You think of the stupidity of incarcerating so many people, because it doesn't just destroy or take the liberty of that one individual. It can often destroy the family they leave behind. It might remove the only breadwinner. It might remove the only parent. And we've taken up that issue when we've talked about the impact on children of having a parent incarcerated. And unfortunately, over 2.5 million American children do have a parent in jail. And that number would not be anywhere near that high but for the absurdity of our war on drugs and other nonviolent crimes, because a whopping 60% of those who we do put in jail are nonviolent offenders. The vast majority of those are for drug-related crimes. This is insanity personified. And then we needn't, of course, add that of those incarcerated for these nonviolent crimes that destroy families and communities, the vast majority of them are, that is correct, African Americans. Okay. USA, USA. Okay, let's go to another. Gun violence. That's where we lead. We are so far and away exceptional in that regard. It's mind-boggling. We so far and away lead the developed world in firearm-related murders. We have 20 times more gun-related murders than the world average. If they average out all the other countries, we're 20 times. Hard to imagine. Well, not because we live here and we see it. And the vast majority of those killers who used guns purchased their guns absolutely legally. And that should tell us something about our gun laws. So let's move on. We're number one there, without a doubt. So we're 2 in criminal justice. We're 1 in gun violence. Let's get to health care. Health care. It's hard to believe, but those of us who pay attention know it to be true, but it bears repeating because a lot of people don't want to deal with these uncomfortable truths about our nation. There are counties in this country, and many of them, if not most, are in the Deep South, where the life expectancy of an American is below that of a person in Bangladesh. Lower than, some other countries, Algeria. But countries we think of as, ain't in our league. Well, it turns out, no, they're not. Their citizens are actually, in some respects, better off, apparently. They can expect to live longer. This country, I want to thank the Republicans for most of this falls right on Republicans. Does it not? The guns, the lock-em-ups, the death penalty, all this stuff. This is so Republican-dominated stuff. And healthcare, here we are. We are the only developed nation that does not guarantee healthcare to every one of its citizens. And that's even after, the horrors of Obamacare. Even after that, because that does not cover everybody. We are the only one. We are unique. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are exceptional among developed countries. In the tens of thousands of poor Americans actually die every year because they lack access to basic health care. The richest nation on earth. We also have the distinction of spending more than twice as much on health care than other nations on average do. And as you can see, we don't necessarily get a better outcome. Our infant mortality rate, too, is something that we should be ashamed of. It dwarfs other nations, comparable nations. And while we're still on health care, we have so far and away the highest teenage pregnancy rate in the developed world. And I have to tell you, the only reason, why? Because American kids are more promiscuous? No! They're denied education about sexuality, and then they're denied contraception. That's why. And Republicans and certain religious folks, we thank you for that. By the way, I've been carrying this around for a few days, and it fits right in here. Doctors now believe that in the next several years we will see a truly eyebrow-raising decline in teenage pregnancies in this country. And why? Because of Obamacare. Because of the Affordable Care Act. Because the Affordable Care Act allows much, much easier access to birth control. Much less expensive access to birth control than ever before. And you watch and see how those unintended pregnancies among teenagers drop. Again, no thanks to the Republicans, because they like America to be exceptional. The thing is, I don't think they understand that their policies generally make us exceptional in a way that no sane nation would want. No distinction that anyone in their right mind would choose. I'll very quickly finish this up. Exceptional! We are only, there's only 2 other nations in the entire world. I'm not talking developed here. I'm talking the entire world. Take every nation on earth that does not guarantee paid maternity leave. There's no other developed nation. The U.S. is joined in this unbelievably shoot yourself in the foot kind of social policy by Swaziland and Papua New Guinea. We're exceptional. And what this, of course, means is, well, do we need to go into this? A woman has a baby. If she doesn't get paid for taking time off to have that baby and to get that baby and her started off on a good foot, if she doesn't get paid when she attempts to be a good mother, then she's going to have to go back to work because otherwise she can't feed the baby. And yet, who's taking care of the baby then? And you get my drift? There's a cruelty throughout. If you say, what is up with us? There's a mean-spirited mean-spirited cruelty and a lack of any sense of community, of I am my brother's keeper kind of thought. America is one of the few nations of the world that funds its schools in such an insane manner. Here's what the Americans do, and we knew this. We know this. Americans fund their schools at the local level. And that means the very local level. And so that means if a locality is poor, its schools will be poor. And that means if a locality is rich, its schools will be rich. And that, of course, means that if you're born poor in a poor neighborhood, that odds are you're not going to get the greatest education. And that means your ability to move out of poverty is made extremely more difficult. And if you're already rich and you get to go to your rich school with all your rich friends, you will get a better education. You will get more help than those poor, struggling, poor kids who actually need it. This is Alice in Wonderland, down the rabbit hole in insanity. When it comes to higher education, our system is absurd. It is now based on the unmanageable debt that its students carry on their backs that weigh them down and prevent them from perhaps going into a field that they have a passion for, right? God knows what we're losing with the way we fund all of this. We have the highest tuition costs of any developed nation. Very quickly, we also have the stingiest welfare state of any developed country, although to listen to the Republicans, you would think, oh, my God. Secondly, we're unique in our failure to deal with our crumbling infrastructure. And all you have to do to know that is to travel out of the country. I guess Republicans don't get out much. You travel anywhere else, and you're blown away by their public transit systems, by their roads, by their airports, it's just, wow. You come back to the U.S., you fly into Kennedy or LaGuardia, which is where people fly into from, other developed nations, and they land in an airport that makes that looks like it belongs in a third world country. Seriously. All you have to do is travel to find this out. So that is my little discourse on American exceptionalism. As I said going in, we are exceptional in many good ways. I do think that, and do not take my criticism for meaning that I do not love this nation. I love it very much. I love it so much. I want it to live up to the ideals that it professes. And I want our exceptionalism to be exceptionalism that we can be proud of, not humiliated by. We'll take a break.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Public Theater's masterpiece season unleashes a true classic with An Iliad. Homer's tales of the Trojan War take center stage in this dynamic tour de force featuring one actor playing all of the Greek epic's most famous characters. Tegel Bougere stars in this emotionally charged theater event that the San Francisco Chronicle hailed as absolutely riveting. An Iliad is on stage at the O'Reilly from March 6th through April 6th. For tickets, call 412-316-1600 or buy online at ppt.org.
Download the brand new CP Haps app and find out what's going on in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. It's the fun and free app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text events to 77948 to download now and register to win tickets to see Pittsburgh versus St. Louis at PNC Park April 4th. Plus, lots of great free stuff every week. The CP Hats app, brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
Chris, you're not acting like a grown-up in our relationship.
Am too.
There's your comic book collection, the race car bed.
I'm young at heart, but I put money into my 401k every paycheck. I'm taking control over my financial life, and that feels pretty grown up to me.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1,000,000. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
Are those footy pajamas?
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Pittsburgh Public Theater's masterpiece season unleashes a true classic with An Iliad. Homer's tales of the Trojan War take center stage in this dynamic tour de force, featuring one actor playing all of the Greek epic's most famous characters. Tegel Bougere stars in this emotionally charged theater event that the San Francisco Chronicle hailed as absolutely riveting. An Iliad is on stage at the O'Reilly from March 6th through April 6th. For tickets, call 412-316-1600 or buy online at ppt.org.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Let me use the remaining time in the program to introduce you to a man who maybe you know of him. I did not, and as so often happens with me, I learned about him because he died. And I'm a rabid peruser of the obituary pages. And I find his life such a tale of courage. Caller, hello?
Yes, sorry to be such a regular caller, but this is Clarence, by the way.
Yes, of course, it's Clarence.
The thing you were talking about American exceptionalism and all that stuff reminded me of something I've been reading a lot about lately, and it's a basic income. Have you been reading about that?
Basic income?
Yes, everybody is guaranteed a basic income.
Where?
Right now, it's in Finland, and I've been reading about it, and basically you get a livable income. It depends on what poverty level is. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets it.
Yeah.
Literally everybody, even the rich, gets this basic income. But it replaces a lot of the other things like food stamps, welfare.
Well, they wouldn't have to. everybody's doing okay then. I mean, so it takes a lot of that safety net stuff away because that is it. That's it, right?
Yeah, and that's what reminded me of it because I've been reading about it. It's not like a new idea. It's an idea that's coming back, and I think it was Finland, just basically passed it.
Well,
I think everybody's getting like $10,000 a year. What's the equivalent of like $10,000 a year or something like that? Yeah, and everybody gets it. And I thought, wow. But I think why it wouldn't work in this country, because if people had like a basic income, they're not forced to work somewhere. You know what I mean? Like for health care or, taking a job. Although, there'll still be people taking minimum wage jobs, and that would just be like on top of that basic income.
Yeah.
But, but if they're not being treated well, they don't have to worry about feeding their kids.
Right. They have some freedom. It'll never, of course, I mean, what goes on in the Scandinavian countries ain't ever happening here because the way they're able to do that is, of course, through much higher taxation than we have. And Americans, as you know, have never understood the concept of taxation.
I had this argument with this guy, and I posted this article under it was on Facebook under another person's post. I said this is like really interesting, and then we got to this whole argument about people are too lazy to work and blah 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 blah. And then I found another article. I said, Dave, you didn't read the article because even within that article there were liberals or progressive, whatever you want to call them, and libertarians agreeing to this.
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
Because it was like it's called it's basic income, and I'm starting to see it a lot more. So I don't know if you're ever going to hear about it, but
well, you're never going to hear about it here. So, give it up.
Okay, but I
All
thought it was a good idea as you're
Yeah,
saying that. But
sure.
to be honest with you, you and I might be dead and gone, but I see this next generation with all their super duper debt, and right now they're living with their parents, but are they going to be able to have their children live with them?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, I don't want to babble on and on, so I'll let you go.
Yes. Yes.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Oh, wait, good day. Sorry, it's not the weekend yet.
Yeah, that's
All
okay.
right.
Thank
All right.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so I just want to try to get in this guy's little bit of his life. His name was Lee Lorch, Lorch. He lived a long life, died at 98. I'll give you I'll give you the why he's got this huge obit in the New York Times. It says here he was a soft-spoken mathematician whose leadership in the campaign to desegregate a gargantuan housing development called Stuyvesant Town on the east side of Manhattan. I know it well. As a matter of fact, if you fly over it into the aforementioned LaGuardia, and you see it, it's just this huge, huge complex of apartments. And I think it was built right after World War II. Anyway, he was responsible for its desegregation, and his fight to desegregate Stuyvesant Town helped make housing discrimination illegal nationwide. So this soft-spoken mathematician, by living his life and guided by these principles he held dear, ends up changing something that basic, where people were free to live all over the country. And he never got rewarded for it, I'll tell you that. All he generally got was a kick in the pants or a kick in the teeth throughout his life. But he held steady. So he serves in the Pacific during World War II. And he comes back and starts teaching at City College, math. He had trouble finding a place to live because all those vets would come back and the housing was, going up like gangbusters. But he ended up living in a Quonset hut in Brooklyn for years. And then finally was able to move into this new development, Stuyvesant Town in Manhattan. He moved in, and so did 25,000 other people. That's how big, 25,000 residents. And later, when he was talking about it, he said, well, I had all the credentials to get my foot in the door at Stuyvesant Town. I had a steady job, I was a college teacher, and all that, and I wasn't black. The guy who built the development was quoted in the New York Post in 1943 as saying, "Negroes and whites don't mix. It would be to the detriment of the city and the development to allow Negroes to live in Stuyvesant Town because it would depress all surrounding property." Anyway, lawsuits get filed, ACLU comes in, the American Jewish Congress comes in, and NAACP comes in, and none of them get anywhere. There were 100,000 people on a waiting list to get into Stuyvesant Town. And Mr. Lorch, the soft-spoken math teacher, forms a group. Starts with just 12 tenants. Founded like-minded people, Town and Village Tenants Committee to End Discrimination. And eventually their numbers grew to 1,800. And they had marches and chants. One of the chants was, "Stuyvesant Town is a grand old town, but you can't get in if your skin is brown." And he went on and on and on, and he was brilliant about his fight. What he ended up doing is he simply invited a black family into his own apartment. All of his troublemaking eventually led to him losing his job at City College, where his promotions were blocked because he was considered a troublemaker. And the whispered things that he was a communist. He must be a communist. He ends up getting a job at Penn State. September 1949, he moves to Happy Valley. Found a teaching job at Penn State, even though his reputation had preceded him. And he was taken directly to the president of Penn State's office. And he was told that he'd been getting phone calls from wealthy alumni, essentially wanting to know why I had been hired and how quickly I could be fired. His wife and daughter were made behind in Stuyvesant Town, and he kept working at Penn State, although, of course, that didn't last long, bless you, because he was denied reappointment. Penn State got rid of him as quickly as they could, too. And that is when his wife and daughter living there invited another black family, the Hendricksons, into their apartment. And he was told by Penn State that his allowing this black family to live in his apartment in Manhattan was, this is a quote, extreme, illegal, and immoral, and damaging to the public relations of this college. I'm glad to report that some Penn State students stood up for him. Albert Einstein stood up for him. The New York Times stood up for him, but he was gone. He ended up being run from pillar to post all his life. He became one of 2 white professors at Fisk University, which is a historically black institution in Nashville. And he even ended up getting in trouble there 7 years later. Well, you know what? There's too much here, and I'm out of time, damn it. Let me just write what Ethel Payne wrote in the Chicago Defender, which is an African-American newspaper, in 1956 about him. Because he believed in the principles of decency and justice and the equality of men under God, Lee Lorch and his family have been hounded through 4 states from the north to the south like refugees in displaced people's camps. And in the process of punishing Lee Lorch for his views, 3 proud institutions of learning have been made to grovel in the dust and bow the knee to bigotry. Obviously, Penn State, one of them. He was there when Little Rock High School was integrated. He was working behind the scenes, accompanying black students into the school, tutoring them afterwards. He and his wife and child were abused, crosses burned on their lawn, their daughter harassed, dynamite placed in their garage, and African-American leaders start getting skittish because they're told that he had associated with communists. Do you know who went after him big time to get away from blacks? Thurgood Marshall went after Lorch. In 1957, Lorch said, "Thurgood Marshall has been busy poisoning as many people as he can against us." And then he was told by someone at the NAACP that the best possible contribution you could make to the cause of full citizenship for Negroes in Arkansas would be to terminate in writing your affiliation with the Little Rock branch of the NAACP. Well, he's thrown out of the NAACP. No American college would have him. He ended up moving to Canada. I didn't get into how the Stuyvesant thing ended up working out, but let's just say he won that case eventually. And as I said, and as the first line said, it resulted in discrimination in housing being made illegal all over the United States. This is a guy we don't know about, a guy who just stuck to his principles and never got any reward for it, only got, as I said, kicked in the teeth. Lee Lorch died at the age of 98 in Canada. I just wanted other people to know about him, okay? Thank you so very much for joining me. And we'll take our sniffling, snuffling, sneezing show and leave you now. Tomorrow we hope to have Christopher Potter with us. I'm done predicting who's going to be on the show anymore. I'm finished. See you tomorrow, I hope.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.